Welcome to another edition of CHP Talks. We are here today to talk about the hospice care, about the Delta Hospice Society, and we have a special guest with us today, Angelina Ireland. And so, Rod, why don't you introduce her, give her a formal introduction?
Well, it's not all that formal. Angelina has become a friend in recent months. I've gotten to know her a bit, and she spoke to our AGM in Abbotsford in September and described some of what was going on with the Delta Hospice Society. Angelina is the president of the Delta Hospice Society. She's active in her community. She works as an entrepreneur, and she says that her greatest achievement is her family and marriage. But she's also a very informative speaker, and she's on the front lines. I'm going to switch this to gallery view. She is on the front lines for the protection of innocent human life and standing up to the bullies in the government, and in this case in British Columbia. So, Angelina, thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me, Rod. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Yeah.
Yes. So, as we have alluded to, you're involved in the Delta Hospice Society, but recently there's been a court decision that has gone very much against what you stand for. And do you want to sort of open up that subject for those who aren't familiar and sort of bring us up to speed?
Yeah, sure. So we were originally taken to the BC Supreme Court because we had rejected certain people who wanted to become members of our society. And we rejected them because they basically wanted to bring euthanasia into the hospice. And there has been a real concerted campaign, concerted effort in collusion with Dying with Dignity Canada to, sign up members, get them into our society, and then basically take over and have euthanasia implemented into the hospice. So we took a stand and we said, well, we're a palliative care society. We've been a palliative care society for 30 years. This is the absolute opposite of anything having to do with euthanasia. And so we will not allow people to join. We don't think that's in the best interest of our society if they cannot clearly support our Constitution and the purposes of why all of us got together in the first place. So we denied them. And that's what the firestorm, broke out. And we also said that what we're going to do, because the government has cut our funding, because we won't kill our patients, is to apply to become a faith-based society. Because as a faith-based society, we are granted an exemption from having to perform MAiD in our hospice. And I was quite frankly, many of our members are Christian. Many of our members are people of faith, and that might actually be a very good fit for us. So we proceeded to ask that. We tried to ask that question of our membership. Right. So you put the two together, rejecting people and saying, let's become faith-based and get an exemption. It threw these activists into an absolute, fever pitch of anger, and they took us to court. And they took us to court to make sure they get that meeting canceled. And second of all, force us to, bring these people into our society as members. So that's where the court case started.
Wow. So basically, you're, I take it that the society had started at such a time that being against euthanasia was sort of common sense. Like, who would even go in that direction? And times have changed so much that now you would have to be faith-based to be opposed to murder.
That's right. That's at the moment, and we're concerned about that faith-based exemption that the government provides. But at the moment, they will not force you if you have a faith-based designation. And yes, you're absolutely right. I mean, 30 years ago, when this society started, that wasn't even conceivable that we would have laws in this country that would be forcing doctors, if they weren't going to euthanize their patients, then to send them off to somebody who will. Inconceivable that, a hospice, a place that should be a sanctuary for those in their last days, would be under such tremendous pressure to be, to be killing their patients. So when those bylaws were constructed and the Constitution was constructed, it was a very different world.
Wow.
Do you think that this, I think maybe you alluded to this, the faith-based exemption, do you think that that itself is in danger of being taken away by this socialist government that we have now?
Oh, yes, I do. I think absolutely. And, one of the biggest national lobby groups, interest groups, is called Dying with Dignity Canada. And they've been, involved in this whole in the background. They have publicly stated and written articles that this faith-based exemption should be lifted, that nobody should have a faith-based exemption, that everybody should be forced to carry out euthanasia on people. If they want it, they should get it. And you have we don't care about your conscience rights. We don't care about your religious freedoms. So, this is the direction that this country is going. And people need to be aware of that. There's no more hiding. We have to face it.
And just to clarify for anyone who may be wondering, this organization Dying with Dignity is taking language and turning it around. What the hospice is providing is death with dignity, as so far as it can be provided. What this group is trying to do is kill with
impunity.
Impunity, I think that's really the word we're looking for. With a medical stamp of approval, they're not looking to let people die. They're actually looking to end people's lives.
So Angelina, you've told me that you operate a 10-bed facility, and you're not far away from the Delta Hospital where they actually perform euthanasia. Why do you think that Adrian Dix and this government have been trying to force you to convert your palliative care facility into one that performs euthanasia when that so-called service, I don't call it a service, but when that procedure is available just down the road? You're
right. I mean, we were right next door to the Delta Hospital. Like, I think we clocked it, it's a minute. It's a minute to get there. So, the laws in this country say that there has to be access in the community. Well, there's the access. The access is there. The access is in your home. You could have it on a beach. You could go up to the mountains. You could pretty much have it anywhere. So the access is wide open. The problem is there's the access to palliative care is being diminished. So here we are, little 10-bed hospice of no consequence, honestly, out in the outskirts of Vancouver, in a little community, beautiful little community. Would it really matter if we were allowed just to, carry on, do the kind of work we've been doing for 30 years? We have been the flagship hospice probably in Canada, state-of-the-art facility, beautiful, very dedicated people, dedicated volunteers. But then, in comes the government and absolutely destroys this relationship, symbiotic relationship that we have had with the community, because they pushed us into a corner and said, you will perform euthanasia or we'll pretty much destroy you. I mean, that's actually what's happened. So, why? I mean, here my only sort of opinion on the subject is that, you are not allowed to resist. Resistance is perhaps contagious. And, if you make a stand, somebody else might make a stand. And, this is probably something that's inconceivable to, a political train of thought where there really is no freedom. So, we stood up, we made a stand, and no other hospice has made a stand because they take your money away, they destroy you. And so, perhaps they're concerned that the courage, the commitment that we are showing to preserve and protect palliative care in this country as a human right is dangerous. So, why would anybody else be, want to bother with us? And why would they possibly be afraid of me? I'm not, but for some reason, we're like enemies of the state. And
I presume there's no massive outcry from your patients to demanding euthanasia. Is that, or have I got it wrong? Is the government coming in to protect the rights of patients who are crying out for the opportunity to have their life ended?
no, because there's so much access, right? It's not even an issue. So much access to euthanasia. But like I said, the access to a sanctuary is what we should all be fighting for.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes, I think that's something that every listener has to bear in mind. You might be in the prime of life. You might be so far from feeling ill or getting into your final days that it's just kind of a topic out there. But who doesn't want to have a sanctuary, as you put it, a place when in your final days, when you are not doing well, when you are, aside from a miracle in your final hours, you wouldn't want a place of support and of care, rather than pressure to end it, which is really the regime we're getting into in Canada.
Angelina, do you think some of the pressure to have, for patients to choose euthanasia, do you think some of that is financial on the part of the government, that they're wanting to cut costs, and so it's a cheaper solution for them than to actually care for people?
Yeah, I've always said that. I've been chastised for it. How dare you, Angelina? But it's true. Currently, I think a doctor makes about $400. We looked into it. They make about $400, about 20 minutes worth of work, right? To hook up a IV and basically kill somebody. How much does it cost to have a patient in palliative care, in a palliative care bed or an acute care bed? We might be able to do it for about $600 a day. An acute care bed, maybe about $1,300 a day. So, quite frankly, let's not be naive. We understand parts of the motivation around increasing the access to euthanasia. And what we say is that, we are taking care of people that have given their lives to this country.
Yeah.
They have created this country. They've created families. They've been law-abiding citizens. They've paid their taxes. They've created, among the greatest nations in the world. And is this the best that we can do? Is to offer them in their most vulnerable days, the best thing we can offer them as a compassionate country is death. And I say no. What they deserve is care, and they deserve love. And palliative care is a philosophy whereby it doesn't matter if you have 5 minutes left of your life or 100 years left in your life. Everyone is equal. Everyone is precious. And we will take care of you to the best of our ability. When we have fantastic medical advancements in pain relief and symptom relief, we know so much about psychological and social support that we can give a person. And I think it's very, very important to raise this with you in terms of, those people who want euthanasia. And the line, from the activists is, well, they're in pain and they're suffering. Well, quite frankly, that's not what the evidence says. The evidence says that it's a small percentage of people who are suffering, pain, and we can do a lot to help them. The vast majority of the reasons why people are seeking assisted suicide are psychological reasons. They don't want to give up autonomy. They're afraid. They don't want to be a burden. They have anxiety. They have depression. I mean, these are all, symptoms of a suicidal person. And so we need to recognize that, people, and I have faced those dark hours myself. People in those situations, that's when palliative care is so vital, because we have those tools in which to help them and we understand also that the right to live fluctuates. You have a good day and you're so happy to be here. You have a bad day and you just want things to end, right? So, we need to be understanding it's a complicated process, this end of life process. But to say that we should just give up and give in to the most basest of human conditions means we haven't evolved as a species. We haven't evolved as a nation, and we can provide so much more to the citizens of this country than what the government is currently suggesting.
Wow. Well, I think that those words really do have to sink home, especially with those of you who are older and listening. When you hear those cost figures, how much it costs to look after seniors, and the government, that's for them. It's a liability. It's just a financial liability, and you're maybe at that point in your life you're not likely to vote at all anymore, and certainly not for them. And it's a very stark, and it's a very dark, cost analysis that you're doing at that point. But when it's cheap to give you a life-ending IV, they're all for it. Too many of them.
And we just want to say to those same listeners, you are of inestimable value. We in the CHP appreciate the contributions of all of our citizens, and especially those seniors who have labored throughout their life and are maybe now facing tougher times. But I'm so glad that there is a facility like the Delta Hospice Society, and I wish the Irene Thomas Hospice, which you operate, and I wish there were more facilities like that, because I know it's true that many Canadians do not have access to the type of palliative care that you provide. And instead of the government of British Columbia trying to shut you down, they should be trying to say, what's your secret, and how do we build more facilities like the one you operate, the Irene Thomas Hospice in Delta. Angelina, you are an inspiration to us, and you haven't given up the fight. And that's what I love about you taking this leadership as president of the Delta Hospice Society. You take a licking and keep on ticking. You got up again after this recent court case, and it didn't knock you back that you gave up. You said, no, we've got to try harder. And so
that's right, we do.
We are encouraging our members across the country to join the society. And
thank you. There's one thing that the courts did for us. And they said that Delta Hospice Society is an open society. It's an open, the board of directors can't determine who joins. So we just have to accept everybody who comes along. Regardless of where they live. Wink, wink, nod, nod. We welcome you, because we have been sanctioned by the courts, and we have been slapped on the wrist by the courts that we must accept people, who put $10 down the table and want to come join us. So, for people who want to support palliative care, that consider it, as I do, a national treasure and a gift to humanity. Perhaps this is the place for you to come and be a member.
Yeah.
Wow.
Those who want to find out more about that can contact us. Contact me, Rod Taylor at chp.ca. And we'll want to help you get in contact with Angelina.
Yes.
Any final comments, Angelina, before we close off? We really appreciate you being with us and sharing your life-saving message. We are so pleased that you are standing firm.
Yeah, there's one thing, Rod, and I think people need to understand. We have a federal government that recognizes palliative care. They're being disingenuous at the moment, quite honestly, because they pretend they don't understand. We're just MAiD. Everything's about MAiD. For anybody at any point in their life who wants to off themselves, it's all about MAiD and letting people do that. But this federal government does recognize palliative care, because back a few years ago in the House of Commons, it unanimously passed a framework for palliative care. It was Bill 277. It was a private member's bill brought through by Marilyn Gladu. I'm sorry if I misspoke her name. And everybody said, yes. Oh, it's so wonderful. And the government, they pledged a few $1 billion to this framework of palliative care. President Justin Trudeau has said that, palliative care is important and we have work to do around palliative care. And I was saying, well, here we are.
Yeah.
Come and help us. We want to be part of that framework of palliative care. And so we're just asking the government to, keep their promises. They recognized in the past the value of it. So now here we are, and we would like a MP, a private member of parliament, to step forward and introduce a bill into the House of Commons, or a senator, we're not fussy, which basically says, palliative care needs to be protected, and palliative care institutions should be exempted from having to provide euthanasia or MAiD. That's the bill we want. That's the bill we want to see introduced in the House. And it would be a perfect coupling to Bill 277. And I think the government owes us that. So any MPs out there with the courage, please step forward. We have it all ready to go. We've got a bill here that you can introduce.
Wonderful. That's a great initiative. Another national treasure, a bill coming from the Delta Hospice Society. And we echo that request. I wish that I were in the House of Commons. I would love to present that for you, but there are some good men and women there now who should see this as their opportunity to do something for this nation and for life and for dignity across this country. So,
well, thank you again, and thank you all who are listening, watching. We hope that you will take this to heart and that you will join us again next week for another edition of CHP Talks.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.